I love what I do.
Sure.
You know, there's a quote that says that I loved, and I can't remember who to attribute it to, but it said,
You can quote me if you need to.
yeah, exactly. That's probably who it was. Eric. It said, the thing they don't tell you about finding your passion is that it becomes your obsession and all other things pale by comparison.
Yeah, that's special. That's great.
Right? And I remember when I heard that for the first time, I was like, oh, that's it. Like, I love doing this so much. It's almost hard to stop.
For sure. Codie Sanchez. How we feeling?
Good, man. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. Thanks for joining us. So the podcast is called The Recipe, by the way. And we'll get into the ingredients and the secret sauce, your secret sauce in the kitchen as we go. But we met here at the Collective, right? I know your husband. Can we name names?
Yeah, you can.
So I know your husband, Chris.
Yeah.
Great guy, very inspirational and awesome dude. And then you train with Claire here as well. And I see you crush it. And then I stumbled across your page, and you're just a machine. So anyway, that's kind of what I know from 1,000 feet away. If you don't mind, just give me a little bit on about yourself.
Yeah. Well, I do not feel like I'm crushing it when I'm in here with Claire. I feel like she's crushing me. But I play more in the world of finance. So, you know, I own a bunch of companies. They're what I call boring businesses, which basically means companies that are all around you every single day. Could be a podcast production company, could be a landscaping company, could be a car wash, a laundromat. And what I used to think this was called is private equity. Like I was just a private equity portfolio manager, investing in a bunch of companies, aggregating them, making them better and selling them off. And now I do that for myself in a private holding company.
Yeah.
And then we started talking about it on the internet in like 2020 for some reason, and it caught on. And a bunch of people were interested in this idea of sort of going back to Main Street, not building these huge Silicon Valley or Wall Street businesses. And I think that's probably a little bit better for the world around us than the other way.
Yeah, well, it's super impressive. How many? 20?
We own 24 companies right now.
Okay, got it. That's a lot of shit. And it's all, to your point, very diversified, and things like laundromats and sounds like mafioso stuff is where I'm from.
I was gonna say,
So
you're from the East Coast, huh?
Yeah. So that's
I'm from Arizona. I think we only have like the mafioso guys come and hide in like witness protection in Arizona. I think that's how that works.
Okay, very cool. And so how often or how are you still acquiring new businesses? How often are some exits? Can you talk about any of that? Sure.
Yeah. We used to have 26 companies in the portfolio company that I own, and it's me, and then I have a team that runs that, mostly my own capital. We don't really take outside investors in that right now. Yeah. And that we just had 2 exits in that we sold. You know, I'll probably sell a few more. Some of the car washes that we own, I think I'll sell coming into this market. They're really at a lot more expensive than when we bought them. But for the most part, I try to keep companies, grow them a little bit and hold them forever. They're like bonds, right? So you buy a bond and you want to clip the coupon or get a payment to you every single month for the life of the bond. And that's how I think about a business. You buy a business, you take a cash distribution from it every month or every quarter, and then you have this cash flow that can sustain your life while the business grows.
I get it. You know, it's hearing you talk about it, you're very passionate about it, and reminds me a lot of my clients and friends that I work with, and it's almost like business is a sport, right? And eventually you just find yourself in this groove. You know the game very well. You start to make your own rules, and it's a special thing. At what point did you start to get really passionate about empowering and teaching others how to do it?
Sure.
Because that's a lot of your message as well, right?
Yeah, I had one CEO that told me that we just get rich quietly. Like we don't help other people. We just get rich quietly. And I didn't really like that saying very much. And I remember sort of thinking, I don't want your life. I don't like all the flashy stuff you have. You don't seem happy. You don't seem healthy. And yeah, you're super rich, but like kind of so what after a certain dollar amount. And so in 2020, that was one of the periods where I was a partner in a private equity firm. We were doing well. And I looked around and just thought, God, this is not the room I want to be in. I don't want to be in this room. I don't think you guys are representative of me. And so I started writing. I do my best thinking when I write.
Amazing.
And so I was sort of writing to think about those things. I was writing because the world went a little crazy with COVID and everything that was happening. And I thought humans should have more access to freedom and to self-determination. They should be able to pick their own path. And the only way you do that is this.
Yeah.
And so I started speaking about it publicly because I think that if more people knew how to get ownership and skin in the game, things would get a little bit easier for everybody.
Big
and so
time.
that was the push.
Okay, very cool. So you started your channels when?
2020, so January of 2020.
And for the most part, TikTok, Instagram,
YouTube. Well, I guess that came later. So to start, it was really just Instagram, a newsletter, and Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about like the machine. So for the person at home doing all the editing on their own, because that's how you started and you figured it out. And he's like, okay, this is very time consuming and taxing emotionally and mentally. At what point did you start expanding on that team?
Yeah. So let's see. So I was a one woman show for a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I did the newsletter. I'm best at writing.
Yep.
And so the newsletter I could do by myself. I did that for the year. We had nothing paid from the newsletter.
Okay.
And even though I had done pretty well monetarily before, thankfully, I didn't really feel comfortable paying. I didn't think of it as a business. I was like, I have an email. I write that email. I send it out to people. I don't know. But then I realized, well, I think this might be a business. I did a pre-sale for basically a community saying like, hey, if I talk about all this stuff and you guys want to pay like, I don't remember what, $200, like lifetime membership, something super cheap to begin with, then maybe this is a business. And so I put it out there and we ended up having a lot of people subscribe. And so then I was like, oh gosh, I guess I'm going to hire people and I'm going to make this a real thing. Yeah. And so right about that year mark was when I started doing Instagram videos as opposed to just photos, which I could do by myself. And then it sort of expanded from there. Okay. Yeah.
While that journey was going on, what did your health, your mental health, your fitness look like along that?
Well, mental health for me is a little bit interesting because I love what I do. Sure. There's a quote that says that I loved, and I can't remember who to attribute it to, but it said...
You can quote me if you need to.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably who it was. Eric. It said, the thing they don't tell you about finding your obsession, the thing they don't tell you about finding your passion is that it becomes your obsession and all other things pale by comparison.
Yeah, that's special. That's great.
Right? Mm-hmm. And I remember when I heard that for the first time, I was like, oh, that's it. Like, I love doing this so much. It's almost hard to stop.
For sure.
And so I think the only real mental health battle that I've ever had is just like, I don't really want to have small talk. Like, I'm super uninterested in almost anything that doesn't have to do with business or maybe health or maybe thinking about large issues. Like, I don't want to go to, your baby shower. Yeah. I don't really want to go to any birthday parties.
I get it. Yeah.
And it makes you a weirdo when you're like that. And so I had to find my group of humans who I could be like, I love you. I love Timmy. I don't want to go to Timmy's soccer game. Yeah. Or like, I'll send him a birthday present, but I'm not coming to the 5-year-old. Right. And so like getting used to this normalization of like, hey, I think I can do lots of things and serve the world and be a nice person. Mm-hmm. But the only way I can do that is if I cut out a lot of stuff that the normal person says yes to.
Yeah. And at this level, and achieving to be at the level you're at, you have to understand that there's sacrifices and you got to be comfortable saying no, right?
100%.
Because bandwidth becomes, very limited. So
it's very hard. And I don't know about you, but I've always been a people pleaser.
Yeah.
So it makes me super uncomfortable saying no to people. And then that's a really bad trait because I'll be passive aggressive, aka I won't respond to something right away because I'm like, oh, I don't have time, or I won't show up or whatever. And so as I've gotten a little bit bigger, whatever that means on the internet, I've had to just be a little bit more straightforward, or put somebody like my assistant in the way. But those are the things that I battle with from a mental health perspective. I could care less what people say about me on the internet. To the humans that I care about, I feel bad that I can't do all the things that they want me to do.
Yeah, but I'm sure if they care about you in a mutual way, they'll respect the process and all of that.
That's right. That's why you have to get around people like this, I think, or listen to podcasts like this, where you're like listening to other high performers that get it.
Yeah.
Because people either that get it or they don't, and you really can't change their mind.
100%. Mickey Drexler, if you remember that name.
Yeah.
Used to work with him in New York, and that's exactly what he said.
Interesting.
And it was just like, yeah, you're right. You're right. Either you get it or you don't, and surround yourself with people that do. Also, great guy, because if you don't, look him up, Mickey Drexler. Awesome dude, J. Crew Gap. Older gentleman. I used to train in this like dungeon in New York, right? When I was doing my own thing, independent training, and you go downstairs, you almost hit your head, brick wall, and like he would come in, throw his beautiful peak coat on the floor and just get ready for work. Just great guy. Okay. So speaking on that fitness, right? What are you doing now? Like what's really fueling you to like optimize, and what does optimizing look like for you?
Well, the toughest thing for me has been, as I've gotten older, your body just isn't as fit as easily as it used to be. And so I remember when I was like, 18 and 20, it was like, I'm going to have 37 tequilas and a side of pizza, and I'm going to be a size 2. And, I don't know how that happened. And now, oddly, that doesn't work for me anymore. Mm-hmm. And so as I've gotten older, I had to pay some real attention to it. And my husband, actually, because he's, former special forces and stuff, he's been really good with that. We basically, I have to remove any sense of temptation, because I have to make so many decisions during the day. I get decision fatigue. And so if it's around me, I'm not able to say no very well. I mean, I'm okay at it, but not great.
Yeah.
So it's like we got on the same page. We sat down and we were like, no processed foods in the house, I don't want a bunch of snacks that I could potentially eat.
Right.
I'm lactose intolerant, so he can have like ice cream and stuff that I can't eat because I won't do that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But we try to like really respect the other person's struggle.
Yep.
And like, sorry, mom and dad, if you're listening, but my mom always struggled with that with my dad because he wants all the stuff in the house and she didn't have the willpower to do it.
Sure.
And it kills your workout zone. So that was first. It's just like, how can I make this as easy as possible?
Yeah. It's amazing, like that generation. Even when I have my grandparents over, I got these really nice coffee machines and these great healthy things. And then she'll come to me and go, Eric, I'm so sorry. Can you just please go to the gas station and just fill us up with that coffee that they make? It's just their palate is so different. Their understanding of it is real different.
My dad will only drink instant coffee. Instant. I mean, you gotta love them.
You gotta have it when you want it, I guess. So you speak on it publicly, your relationship with Chris, and it's something to be like admired and
Thanks, man.
modeled after. So where and when did you meet?
Well, speaking of my dad, actually, I went to high school with Chris.
Oh, wow.
So we actually went to prom together, which is wild.
Love
yeah,
that.
I had platinum blonde hair at the time, actually, which is
Pull
a
up
real
some
look.
photos in the back.
It's not good. It's not good. And anyway, so we knew each other in high school. Then he went into the military. I was building a business in Latin America. We lost touch for like 12 years. Mm-hmm. I was actually married prior.
Okay.
I got a divorce. So I was still running a business in Latin America. And my dad and him, in very like Arizona style, used to hunt together.
Sick.
And so they hunted for years together, even though Chris and I are basically the same age. And my dad was kind of the one that was like, I think you two would really hit it off. Why don't you like get back in touch? Mm. And so we did and started a friendship. He I think was living in Germany at the time.
Yeah.
And I was in Latin America. And so like in a healthy way, I think we started off just getting to know each other intellectually. And we made sure we kind of liked that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
When I met him briefly, I was training some of his buddies and they mentioned, oh yeah, he used to serve. And just like you talk to him and he's a little of a close talker, which I love because so am I, And so we're right here. And we were talking and it's just like, I just felt genuine vibes. And then plus with the martial arts background and my boxing background and we just knew a lot of that history. So every time I see him, I'm like, brother's here.
Exactly.
Which is amazing when I found out you guys were, married. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah,
and he has some
a good compliment.
twin brother or something like that?
Not a twin, but they look very similar. Yeah.
I saw a photo recently. I was like, holy shit. Three of them.
Yeah. There's, exactly. Okay. Yeah.
Amazing. So we talked about this briefly in the sauna, and that's not weird because a collective, it's very co-ed here.
We had our clothes on.
Yes, we sure did.
Yes, we did.
Sure did. Mm-hmm. That was a big rule before I moved to New York. Clothes stay on.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what
this is a family channel.
That's what Jeremy and Dev told me. But we were talking a little bit about your interest in really trying to eliminate some of that guesswork and trying to dial in and optimize, human performance, right?
Yeah, totally.
Because that ripples into everything else. Do you have any questions for me in that regard or questions just in general?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that I was like, we should talk about this on the podcast because I was selfishly, this is about me, really, this podcast, was, now what I've found is that, you can kind of keep your 80% thing. Like I know where I am, I can stay at like 80%. Mm-hmm. But say you wanted to get to that 20%, which is like the real difference maker of how I've felt or looked for the past, 5 or 10 years.
Sure.
Like what are the secrets for high performers? Because sometimes I find it overwhelming. I'm like, I can work out 5 to 6 days a week pretty well.
Yeah.
But I sort of feel like I'm flatlining. So what do you see the best high performers do?
Yeah. So what I've learned is you find that like the person that does 3 times a week, and then they'll go, all right, I can do 4 now, or I can do 5. I can do 2 a days, Monday through Friday, and then just bomb myself on the weekend. Or eventually you navigate these highs and lows of yourself, where you try to remember, oh shit, that week I looked really good. What was I eating? And then you forget, and it's this guessing game.
Yeah.
So the biggest thing is, how can we eliminate the guessing, right? And, you know, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. So when you're doing blood work and sitting down with professionals, there is no more guessing, you know, because the data is there. And getting that observation broken down, of just getting the roadmap broken down from a professional based off of the info that your blood is providing, you can then, okay, for this goal that you might want, here are the macros. For the goals that you want, but also to attack this visceral fat around your organs and the subcutaneous fat that you need to you know, break down. This is what that roadmap looks like, and it might take a little bit longer than this one, but this one is the healthier, and you'll get the aesthetics you want as well. It's just there's options, right, for everybody, and you can get really, really in the weeds with it, and it really shows someone's commitment or not. Because what happens is, and I see this all the time, Eric, I'm going to be in town for a month. Here's 10 grand. Let's train every day and let's do this. Or they'll do that in a week in Malibu on the beach with people jumping in cold plunges, which is great too. But then they'll come back and they'll blow back up because they're no longer on this 1,200 calorie miso diet, you know?
Exactly.
And in theory, all that is really nice. It's just, how do we actually sustain that, right? Dropping 20 pounds in a week, in a month, unless you know, cut and wait for a fight, that should not be a thing, right? So it's like, okay, you break it down. Okay, if this person wants this much body fat or to lose this much weight, you have to think about the long game, unfortunately, and think, okay, a pound a week, a pound and a half a week, that is sustainable, you know? And
there's a lot of it just having somebody hold you accountable too.
Yeah.
Like, because I think that's the biggest difference maker. You know, even when you come to the gym, like, I'll like come and I'll do the, you know, I'll do the whole workout that I'm supposed to do. My intensity level will be a 5. Then I'll do it with one, like Claire or another trainer. And, you know, all of a sudden I'm dead by the end of the workout.
100%. And I try to think about it too, because like, and I'm going to say the one side of it before I give you that response, because the response is hire the team, get your blood work done, you know, speak with a nutritionist, a dietitian, get that person. Maybe you need a little therapy on the side for some childhood stuff, you know, and then you get your fitness program and your coach that you see 3 or 4 times a week, and then have a program to do when you're on your own or traveling. Just like you have with your businesses, you need the team. It's no different. A lot of these clients that I have, they're super wealthy and they got pretty wealthy, maybe a little young. And everyone's in like awe of these people if they know them, but that doesn't mean they're a master in this craft of like nutrition and longevity and human performance. It's all masked by the money, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
When you actually talk to them, they're like, macros, why would I do blood work? And it's like, dude, like Elon, love you, Elon, but no one's going to take us to Mars if you go, you know, he goes. So he needs to just do the bare minimum.
Start with some vitamin D. You know?
You know. So with that said, it's like having the team, yes, all of which I just said can get a little pricey depending on who you're working with. But the other side of it is like, okay, it doesn't cost that much to like go to a Walgreens or go to see a cardiologist or something and just, is my heart working? How's my blood looking? Pay a little small fee one time for like a nutritionist plan based on what those numbers look like. And then yes, you need the discipline. Maybe there's an app like a ladder that I use or one of our coaches are on, you know, that's like pretty high tech, great.
I love that ladder app, by the way.
It's awesome.
I invested in it, so you guys should definitely download it. Okay.
Good for you.
Exactly.
Great. We're going to make a lot of money.
Exactly. They'll like ding in the corner.
So with that said, by the way, if you looked at it recently, up and to the right, it's doing great.
They're crushing it.
So we'll get back to that because this is not about us making money yet. So there's apps like that we can use, and it's affordable. So it all boils down to the accountability, having the plan, and eliminating the guesswork. Yeah. And however you get there, you know, is up to you and what but the resources are there. Yeah. You know, you can go very high end if you can, and it's in person and it's very personal, or you can use the products like Ladder and just go see your general practitioner, and there's ways to do it. Just you have to do it.
I totally agree. I mean, you know what I think is so cool about life is that all of us, even people who you think have it figured out, we all have these massive weakness areas, right? Sure. So if business and money might be one of my strong suits, and maybe I'm better now at relationships than I used to be, definitely health is the one where I'm like, I got pretty lucky with genetics. Like, I will definitely say that. Yeah. And then, I have a lot I want to optimize. So things like, I love that Ladder app. I also like the First Form app for food.
Yep. Solid one.
Yeah. I mean, I think, do I know if any of these are the best ones? No, but just having something that I utilize and that, Tony Robbins ism of like where your attention goes, your energy flows. And so basically, if I am tracking my food somehow loosely because I'm forgetful, and I'm tracking my workouts somehow loosely because I'm forgetful, I do get to that 80% solution. Yeah. But I am excited why I like this place, and talking to people like you is like, at some point it is all a game, right? So you're like, I wonder how I could be like a top 1%.
How can I get to that 20?
Right, why not?
And I think where that lies is to get there is there isn't those room for, I didn't really hit that meal. I didn't really do those reps I should have done. So a lot of things that I do with my client is I basically run like point guard for all their touch points for health. Yeah. So it's on their schedule. And like, you don't have, this sounds intense, but it's on their schedule what they should be eating and probably when, what vitamins they should take if they oversleep, when the phlebotomist is coming to their office or home to draw blood, when we're seeing one another, who to see when they go to New York. So that's pretty, I'm very integrated, in that regard. So that's what like that 20%, like, cause then it's just like, okay, yeah, I wake up and I drink water, I put my pants on, and then you eventually look at your fitness like that and all the other things regarding your health. And then you gamify it, right? Because as you get better and improve on metrics, you go, okay, now let's see what happens if we do this. Now let's see what happens if we increase carbs a little bit or take away, some stuff. And then you can play with it. And it 1000% ripples into everything else, in your life.
What do you think about that new drug that all the Kardashians are on that just makes them super skinny, but like takes, I don't know, diabetes medicine away from people who need it? Isn't that a thing? I haven't read that much about it.
Yeah. From what I understand, it basically takes away the appetite quite a bit. And
starvation.
Essentially. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Yeah. Look, people are fucking nuts. If there is something going on with like their blood, thyroid, that it is crucial for them to be lose weight immediately and very fast. And the issue is similar with like mushrooms and psychedelics and ketamine. People play doctor all the time. And if they have the access and the means, next thing you know, they think they're a chemist, and the hugs get longer and the words get slower.
So true. What's wrong with Austin, by the way? We attract so many here.
Yeah, which is
you can't walk outside, throw a crystal without hitting a shaman. For sure. It's just
I've been to a party where they have sommeliers, drug sommeliers.
Stop.
Just swear.
This is great.
Yeah.
I want to come to the next one.
Okay.
I want to ask him how much money you make. I want to understand the business model.
Yeah. It's a whole thing. And he's like, well, what are you in the mood for? How'd you sleep last night? And I'm like, dude, relax. I got my Diet Coke and I'm going home in 15 minutes.
I need better friends, I think.
Yeah, I'll show you the way. Get Chris out too.
Oh yeah, the hugs though, the long hug is not okay for anybody. This is a public service announcement.
For sure. And that's something like I've been trying to get better with as well as body language. Yeah. Because like I think as much as I don't like people, I'm a man of the people. I love to love and I love to connect. But I don't want everybody to think, I think Eric wants, if I gave him the green light, we would be having sex. I don't want that, So I'm trying to be more mindful of my body language. But sometimes you get these people and they lock into your soul. Eye. Yeah. And then the contact.
Yeah.
It's a whole thing.
It's a lot. The back clap too. Yeah. Don't worry. I've never felt that with you. You're you're killing it. You're totally normal.
Thank you. I'm working on it. I got the Aura Ring to help me with that. If things spike, I calm it down.
It just shocks you. Inappropriate.
But yeah, things like those drugs to manipulate diet and appetite, I don't think anybody should be playing doctor. It goes back to saying, guessing, and there are always some effects, right? Some long-term things.
I can imagine.
The big topic I've been on recently is peptides.
Yeah.
Because there's a bunch of great things you can take out there. They're a little expensive. They're not steroids, like athletes wouldn't get popped for it.
Right.
But you are taking some kind of enhancement that naturally produces this or X, but like, what does that look like for your tendons long term if you are, increasing something on a not exactly natural way, your tendons don't have time to kind of catch up with that and heal. So there's always something you have to be mindful of. But then again, if you're a maniac lifting with bad form and crushing a heavy bag, your tendons are shot anyway,
It's true.
So it's all relative. But there is a good approach to like being superhuman as much as possible.
Yeah, so I stick to money, man. I
Yeah.
just gotta hang out with you guys. You could teach me the rest.
So we were talking a little bit about consumer.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk a little bit more. What are some of the things you are invested in that you'd like to talk about that are in my space, health, wellness, or also just what you're involved in as well? I know you do a lot of cool
we could
videos.
talk about first couple things like that are terrible investments in your space, I think.
Yeah, let's do it.
So these are like really bad ideas that I wouldn't do. So one, like I remember the first deal that I lost money on was it was a CPG company consumer packaged good company in the health and wellness space. It was like, I would explain it as, I won't say the company because it's still around and I don't want to be rude, but it was essentially like a squeeze product that you would take before a workout, but it was super natural. And I'll tell you who it is afterwards.
Okay.
But anyway, really hard business because, didn't have a very long shelf life on the product, right? Like co-packing, located in California, in an industry that had a lot of other competitors. And what I see a lot of people do is they get stoked by a really fancy consumer product because the branding and marketing is amazing and you can understand it and use it in your everyday environment. It could be really sexy, but people lose a ton of money in food. And so I stay out of almost all food. Beverage, I've invested in before and done well, so I like beverage. But I'm really careful about the food products because I think it's a quick way to blow money. And unless you're a top tier operator, you're just better off working with something that doesn't have all of the FDA regulations and can have spoilage and basically die on shelves.
Sure.
So it's one of my least favorite investments is food of any type, including restaurants. Yeah, even though I like food.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you do anything in like VC, hedge fund space?
Yeah, a lot. I sit on the board of a hedge fund, $6.5 billion. It invests
Healthy.
It invests in what I guess you would, it's mostly in Europe, but it invests in companies that have been around for a long time that are in some sort of transitionary period. Lot of private companies, publics too. So that company is pretty interesting. But for like the normal human, you're probably not going to invest in hedge funds. I really don't think everyday humans, until you're worth $1 million plus, and that's like liquid investable assets, should be playing in the VC game.
Sure.
Because 8 out of 10 of them you're going to lose.
Right.
And so that's why I do something called cash flow investing, which is basically if I take $1 and I give it to Eric for an investment, I want to see that dollar come back to me in full within 3 years. So I want the return of capital to me inside of 3 years. And I want distributions, so 50 cents of the dollar or 25 cents of the dollar to come to me within 1 quarter, 3 months. And so this is doable if you buy the non-sexy businesses.
Sure.
Sexy businesses, you got to keep funneling the cash back into the marketing machine, right? And so that's okay to take some of your money later on and play in that game. But I see a lot of people get burned in private deals because they're trying to find the next Tesla or, Terramana tequila, and instead it's not going to pan out.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
So what are some of those non-sexy ones?
Well,
And also, Tanya, you got $1 I can borrow?
yeah, exactly. You want to give it back? Yeah. So I would say the type of businesses that I like the most, let's play this game. So I call these boring businesses, and how I teach people to find them is 12 different methods, but one in particular I like is called your personal P&L. So let's say you pulled out your credit card statement and what you spend every single month for you as a human, Eric, and you'd see all the locations. One of them would probably be a gym like Collective before you were an investor here or before you were participating in this. So you might have your gym membership, you might have your landscaping guy, you might have your rent, you might have your I don't know, auto mechanic, because your car's already going in. And what people don't, they look at the products they use and they think, I'll go buy some Google stock because I'm using Google product, or Amazon stock because I'm using Amazon. But what if instead you could invest in those little businesses all around you that you're already kind of investing in by paying them every month? And so that's one of the reasons I looked at Collective to invest in when it got rocking and rolling. Because I was like, interesting business model. Maybe this is somewhere I want to invest. Or, auto mechanic shop. Maybe he's 65 plus looking to retire, and turns out Chris is good with cars. And so we might want to buy that auto mechanic company and place somebody else in there as an operator. Yeah. So that's how I like to find deals is, first your personal P&L of all the things you're already spending on. And then you learn a little bit about deal structuring, which is how to give them $1 and legally require what I just talked about, which is return of capital and distributions.
Yeah, that's super interesting because especially with social media now, all you see is the sexy stuff. Yeah. And it's very intimidating for people to go, well, how am I going to get all this capital and throw it into this? And then I know they're going to come back for more if they even do well. Yep. So that's a great piece of advice.
Yeah. I think, and you can think about it in just about anything. Let's say that somebody listening is a fitness instructor. I was actually talking to Claire about this, and, she's launching an app, and I was asking her the terms of her app. I'm like, who owns the app? Do you own the underlying, app? What's the relationship you have with them? Do you have like a referral or equity if you send them more people through this? Sure. And so in every single engagement that you have, starting to ask yourself, and to think like, in your world, maybe like an agent. Yeah. Like if you were like, okay, I'm not Eric today, I'm Eric's agent. How would I be trying to get a little slice of the pie, a little skin in the game in almost every transaction that I have in my day to day? And the second you turn that switch on, it's really hard to turn it off. And then it's pretty fun because everything you see, you're like, I want to invest in that. I want a piece of that. Right. Maybe I want to buy that.
And not to mention, if you're dealing with the right owners, right, and operators, they'll take you more serious. They'll respect you a lot more because you have the courage and the knowledge to ask those kind of questions. So that's, great point. I talk about that with coaches all the time. Like, they can't really afford this right now. Well, I'm like, because, just because they're a founder doesn't mean they're, making millions right now or billions, right? It's their salary might be less than what you're making. But if you believe in him and the company, maybe they break you off a little bit
100%.
And on the back end. So I was able to do a lot of stuff like that. And then, it definitely pays dividends for sure.
100%. And I think the biggest key there is just anytime you start learning about deal structuring, which I think is the best skill you can learn, is how to become a deal maker. Because it's the one thing where you can have an outsized return for your time spent. Yep. One well done deal can pay for a lifetime. And so I think the only thing people really do sideways there is they are single focused in their asks. So it's like, Eric, I was on your podcast. Cool. Can I get a cut of it? You're like, what the? No, get out of here. But if I was like, I don't know, hey, Eric, I manage your podcast and I book all the guests. What if I started booking sponsorships for you too? Sure. And I brought you sponsors. Could I get a cut of that?
Those are great questions.
Right?
Yeah.
And I would also probably say the smarter way to do it, and sorry if your person is listening to this, they should also go, hey, can I have a cut of anything sponsorship I bring? But then, because I don't want to just be an employee in this, could I get in perpetuity some percentage of that? Yeah. And there's lots of ways to do it. First of all, there's always going to be tension between you wanting something, them wanting something. Sure. But I'd say like, okay, Eric, how about this? I bring you $10,000 in sponsorships. I take a 10% cut of that. You'd probably be like, yeah, dude, that's reasonable. Then I go, okay, but also I want 10% for 2 years of their deals that they do for you. So let's say we start with a $10,000 transaction and next year they up to 100K. I want 10% of that deal too. And then after 2 years, it's all you. I just take that 2-year trail on it, right? You go, that's still reasonable. And then if I prove myself to be really valuable, I go, okay, Eric, so I've brought you $100,000 in sponsorships over this. Right now I have a 2-year window. I want a 3 or 5 year window, or I want something for the lifetime of each of the deals that I bring. And you like slowly ramp it up as you prove your competence.
Big time.
And I think not enough people do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
By the way, if that was you offering all that, I'm in. Okay.
Done. Signed.
No, that's really cool. So anything going on right now that you are excited about that you can talk about?
Yeah, what am I excited about right now? Well, there's a few things. One, I'm in the middle of writing a book. I don't think I've talked about this publicly yet.
You have not, yeah. This is great breaking news.
I'm sure everybody's waiting on the edge of their seat. But the book should be coming out the latter part of next year. It'll be cool, I think. It'll be on specifically how to buy these boring businesses and this thing that I'm calling the 3 waves that make this a generational wealth creation event. And we sit at this really interesting moment of history where I think now more than ever is the time for people to ask for and get ownership without having to have a lot of cash and equity. Yeah. So the book I'm pretty excited about. If anybody's interested, we'll talk about it at contrarianthinking.co, which is my newsletter. So that's, I think, the biggest item of all right now. That, and we're really doubling down on YouTube. So I think that'll be interesting to see how YouTube shakes out. I think, and I don't know about you, I'd be curious, but like I think Netflix, dead. HBO, dead. Any of these big streaming services, not going to make it. And the reason why is if you look at the financials of these companies, it takes, so let's say Stranger Things. Stranger Things cost $30 million an episode to film. So yeah, Netflix has to pay the Stranger Things team $30 million for 1 hour of time, right? Then you've got, let's say, I don't know, Call Her Daddy, right? Or Joe Rogan or Andrew Schultz or something like that. They create 1 hour of content for free for YouTube, and they do it every single day or 3 times a week for an entire year. The economics don't match. Right. And so I think long term, we are going to be entertained by these lower level content creation businesses as opposed to these huge Hollywood productions. And so I'm curious to see what happens to Netflix, HBO, et cetera, because I don't think they'll survive. I think YouTube will eat their lunch.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you're saying shows like A Stranger Things will be produced on channels like that? Yeah? Yeah,
I think we've been in a period of like we've been in a 15-year bull run, right? After 2008. And we've been in a market where everybody's flush with cash. VCs are subsidizing everything we do, from the Uber rates, as you've noticed, they're now getting higher, to these streaming services getting funneled a ton of money. And that's now dropped off a cliff. We've seen VC funding cut in half. And that'll continue. Usually there's anywhere from a 5 to 10 year lag before VC funding ramps up again. And in that period, that means that those big companies won't be able to pay for those crazy productions. And during that period of time, more and more people, as they already are, will be going online as the cost of production comes down for the everyman.
For sure.
And I think they'll win out. I mean, Mr. Beast supposedly pays or spends about $1 million per video, right? Yeah. So he is self-funding $1 million on the YouTube platform, and he's probably taking home, I don't know what the YouTube cut is, that'd be interesting, but YouTube is the one benefiting from that in the biggest degree, to the tune of 75 to 90% of the ad revenue, right? But they don't have to pay him up front.
It goes back to what you said earlier. For for maybe the last, I don't know, 5 years, maybe 10, YouTube has kind of no longer been the sexy thing, because it's like TikTok, Snapchat, that. But yet it has the fundamentals, it has the foundation.
Yeah.
To last,
I might be biased too, but I don't think TikTok's going to last. I think the problem with TikTok is that TikTok is not creator friendly at all. And, now that I'm relatively big on a bunch of platforms, I talk to the people at the companies. And so, with TikTok, they're basically like, yeah, Codie, that's great. You have 1 million followers, go pound sand.
Sure.
And then YouTube and Instagram and Twitter, they actually want to engage with you because they realize that wherever the best content is where users come from, right? And so YouTube's really smart. Their business model incentivizes creators, right? And TikTok, I think, has an incredible algorithm for attention distraction. So maybe they'll survive because you get in there and then you wake up like 20 minutes later and you're like, where am I?
I feel like, I could be mistaken, but I read somewhere that the search engine of like, what people used to type in Google, they're typing in there now, and that's becoming more and more increased.
In YouTube or in TikTok? Yeah, TikTok search is not very good, but they could definitely fix that.
Because, using your videos as an example, just the engagement in the how-to of something is so like, okay, I watched this twice and I got it, you know, rather than this long tutorial, skipping things and going back.
Yeah.
So for that, I think, you know, it's doing really well. Also for Ladder's sake, I hope it does really well
Oh,
because
yeah,
it's
that's
crushing.
true.
So,
Yeah. Well, I think they'll get on YouTube Shorts.
yeah.
I think YouTube knows the search game really well. Not that TikTok doesn't, because Alibaba and, you know, the Chinese sort of conglomerate is behind that as well. But I think YouTube is actually going to come on really strong with Shorts. Good. And if you've ever searched around on YouTube as opposed to TikTok, it's infinitely better.
For sure. I mean, yeah.
But that might be a bias because I don't like the platform very much.
I wanted to talk to you before I lose my thought. Talk about Collective one more time.
Yeah.
So you mentioned potentially wanting to get involved. What are your thoughts on it, just from where you sit now, being a member, being a consumer of what we have to offer, and also just how much do you know about where we're going?
No, that's cool. I actually don't know that much, so I'd be curious. As far as, you know, from my perspective, I think the one thing you've done really well, not one thing, I think there's a few things, but as almost everything becomes more of a commodity, aka like there's lots of gyms, right? There's pretty much everything you can get on Amazon. Like lots of things are democratizing. The one thing that is hard to democratize is curation. And then also exclusivity. Yeah. And so when I talk to people, like all my companies, about if they want to sell something, I'm like, you have to have timeliness, relevance, exclusivity, and scarcity. Right. If you have four of those things, you have an irresistible offer. And one thing that I think Collective's done really well is exclusivity. There's only so many memberships. Once they're done, they're done. Scarcity is the same thing, but also making sure that the caliber of members that you have, not like an elitist jerk off of a thing, but just people who are serious about coming in, getting the work done, and that, you know, they're going to be in this community in some way, shape, or form. You know, I have a good friend that's in the gym space, Alex Hormozy, him and Layla, and, you know, I always ask them, like, why did you get out of gyms? Why not involve more? And they're like, it's such a hard business model because it's a degrading utility. It's less cool for your members the more money you make, aka the more members you bring in, right? And that's inherently in conflict. Yeah. And so I think you guys have decreased that by increasing your price and having kind of an exclusive, scarce membership. Yeah. I think that's really smart because all the equipment and everything's awesome. But at the end of the day, if you pack it like they do Equinox, it's just annoying, right?
Yeah, it won't work.
Yeah.
Yeah, the goal was, and we thankfully got there relatively quickly, cap it at a certain amount. Yeah. And, you know, you never know. Sometimes you could say, okay, we have some wiggle room for a little more. Yeah. But people end up seeing just like their bottom line, like, okay, let's just keep going, you know? Exactly. And then we as coaches and partners, and also we have a great relationship with most of our members. So there's constant communication on improvement. Yeah. So when we see maybe a long face, when we see an eye roll, we have that conversation immediately and like, what's wrong? How can we fix this? And usually that means like, you know, get this camera out of my face at 9 a.m. or, you know, people are doing this. And then we make those changes, you know? Yeah. And going forward with this new location and the domain opening up in end of January, it'll stand on its own, like I've mentioned. We'll probably have about the same membership count, around 500. Yeah. It's much bigger. And then the goal from there is we'll probably start doing a raise in first quarter for locations 3, 4, and 5. I think that's awesome. Which will be outside of Texas.
Well, you guys have also done a really good thing with your satellite offerings because, you know, when I talk about business buying, I'm always like, yeah, you could go out and buy whatever business, but what the business that Eric should buy is probably something related to fitness, health, community, you know, athletics, something in that vein. Like that's using your sphere of genius and probably your network. Yep. And so I think for Collective, what you've done well is, let's say it costs, I don't know, $300, $400 for a membership. You know, for most members in here, that's like not all you could get out of them.
For sure.
Right? It's like, well, actually we should also have each member probably spending, I don't know, $500 to $1,000 a month on training. So that means the annual value of a member is now getting up there. Big time. We're talking almost maybe not 6 figures, but we're definitely talking mid 5 figures, right? And then if we could also add on top of that, this is where we get the blood drawn, and then this is where you get your massages done, and then da 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 da. I mean, you could have members that are paying you hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for varying services.
Big time.
And then you don't need more than 500 members.
No.
In fact, you just serve those 500 members in a way most places don't.
And that's how we keep those few things you listed: scarcity, exclusivity, and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah, because that's what we're fortunate with. Most on our members, on average, spend around that $300 to $500 a month, and then you have a good handful that spend a significant amount on the medical and the private training. So it's been pretty unique, pretty special. You know, I was talking to Dev, our CEO. You know, like right now we're this like cool mom and pop local. You know, it changes everything when you go outside of that.
Yep.
So location 2 is up the road. We'll crush it there.
Yep.
I'm really excited to see, well, what happens when we go to Nashville? What happens when we go outside the neighborhood of our, you know, an immediate, you know, friend and support system? I'm really excited to see how we do there. And I'm confident as we start to do our own supplement line, protein, more apparel, different things, possibly some kind of measuring tool or app, you know, that's how we really start to, you know, reach Mars with our boy Elon.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anytime you can build once and sell continuously, that's the win. Yeah. But I already think, you know, well, I think that these membership communities have a lot of value in them. I mean, you think about my business. So we have unconventional acquisitions, which is where we talk about buying and selling businesses. And then we have contrarian thinking, which is where we talk about critical thinking and making money in general. Yep. And those two communities independently do tens of millions of dollars a year in revenue. And the interesting part about that is, what are you selling? Yes, you're selling like your knowledge base and, you know, services, AKA if you have $100,000, you should be able to turn that into $1 million in X amount of time.
Sure.
You're selling like, if you come in here and work out, you should have a better body, be healthier, et cetera. But what you're also really selling is like, hey, the other people in here, they're going to be worth that times 1,000. You're going to make one connection with one person in collective, and that $50,000 that you paid us for all the stuff this year is going to be a no-brainer for you. Yeah. And that's where I think Soho House has gone really wrong, and where I think private country clubs keep it really right. You know, their members spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but they keep it so tight about what they offer and who gets in that nobody questions it.
For sure, because they're engaging.
Exactly. But it's hard to do. I find most groups end up going the Soho House way, where it's like, just cram a bunch more people in there, degrade the offerings.
That's not it.
Yeah, it's not it. And the house is awesome and the locations are awesome, but nobody's like, oh man, I love the Soho House. The services are amazing. Everybody's so nice to me. No. It's like, you know, they're like, we really want you to come in here so we can shit all over you for a while. Sure.
Yeah, it's not, that ain't it. I was talking about this earlier with a client of mine who happens to work and run Multicoin. I don't know if you're familiar with them. At a certain point, they were the biggest, you know, crypto hedge fund in the world.
Interesting.
And you know, they're going to recover. It's just there's a lot going on with that right now.
Yeah, for sure.
But we were talking about just like success, happiness, the correlation. You know, it's all relative and yada yada. And we were talking about like numbers. We were playing some funny math. Do you have like a number in mind that you're like, okay, I have this much in my account. I'll have this much coming in, compounding. Let's go off into the sunset and do jiu-jitsu with Chris. And, you know, is there a number in mind for you?
I mean, I'll say, I guess the only thing that I don't feel like we can do right now that I really want to, because I don't actually care about like expensive watches, cars, and I like a nice house and a nice vacation spot. Is I do think there's a material difference between flying private and not.
It's so funny. It's like you're in my frontal lobe here.
That's the only thing. But I'm also at a place where I'm like, it just seems so unnecessary. Yeah. So
if you decide to get dogs or kids,
if I had a kid, I think I'd do it.
It changes everything. And we were talking about this, and we were like,
if I fly private for my dog, though, we got like internet needs to talk shit about me a lot. You know?
That's a little aggressive, but you know. So I was having this conversation with him, and I was like, what do you want? And he went, and we talked about like maybe a plane, you know, or like a NetJets membership so I can fly, I don't know, 100 hours a year or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can't you do that now? And he's like, yeah, I guess I can, but like it would be a lot more comfortable if I was here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's, people think about, I need $100 million in the bank. I need $1 billion.
Yeah.
Really, if you broke down like security with your home and your lifestyle, the car you want, the house you want, maybe the vacation spots, the meals, the fitness, the cosmetics, all of that. And then you even tackle on maybe a few hours on NetJets. You probably only need 6 million, 8 million. It's not too crazy.
No.
Obviously, we're talking about some like pretty first world stuff, but we deserve it. And that's just what it is. But yeah, I'm on the same page. Once you do that, I've been fortunate. A lot of my clients, they have nice toys like that.
It's great.
Just like,
I always had to be the one paying for it. Chris, my husband, because he was a former whatever,
Yeah.
he always gets invited to these ridiculous things. I'm like, what? This is so backwards. I'm the lady here, and I'm buying all of these things,
So
and you're getting invited.
I call myself sometimes, quoting a buddy on this, America's guest, because I get to do some really cool shit and expensive stuff.
Yeah.
And I just have to like show up, smile, be myself.
I'm never going to lose the if it's free, it's for me feeling. Like that's just like a 2023 slogan. I think also, when you said originally, the game of money is fun. And it's not just like, if I really wanted to earn as much as humanly possible right now today, I would stop all the content stuff I was doing online and just go launch a bunch of additional private equity funds. And, we've built a couple $1 billion fund businesses, and that definitely makes you the most money in this moment. But I think the most interesting thing to do is exactly what I'm doing right now. Yeah. And so I can't imagine, I think most people don't realize it. If they're actually honest with themselves and striving for being whatever corny version of the best version of themselves they can be, statement is, they're not going to want to quit. Like, you're just going to want to stop doing some of the stuff you don't want to do. You're going to be like, I don't want to deal with my taxes. Somebody else deal with it. I don't want to schedule meetings, get a VA. Like, you're going to offload some lower level stuff.
For sure.
But the game at the top is super fun.
Yeah.
And so there's no number at which you could pay me to stop working in total.
Yeah. Because I think that's when passion would die.
Yeah.
And then I just couldn't imagine just like sitting around all the time,
Yeah, plus relevancy. I mean, humans need to have some sort of labor to strive for.
For sure.
I think that's when we're happiest.
Big time. And unless and you might have your opinions on this, unless you're like these Stone Age brands, the Coca-Colas, the Dr. Peppers, as you mentioned, like these guys like Mr. Beast and the Logan Pauls, like they are pioneers in what they've been able to do. And whatever they do will start to eat up all of the OGs because of relevancy,
Yeah.
And, the Coca-Colas and Dr. Peppers, they have their demographic and, but sooner or later, the millennials, they're like, oh, power this, or, that's the new thing. So
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how long those traditional holding companies can stay in, or maybe they buy this next generation. That's been their historical way, right?
For sure.
So they just end up buying Prime, or they buy, whatever, and then they take all soul out of the product and then, continue on the way.
Sure.
And I think that's what a lot of them do. But that is the fun part about being a young gun. Like if you're young right now listening to this and out there moving and shaking, man, I don't think there's a better time, because you can disrupt just about anything. And like I was thinking about it the other day, do you know somebody by the name of Emma Chamberlain? She's like a YouTube.
Sounds real familiar.
Yeah, she's like real cute, blonde. And
my type, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like she might not be too young for you. I don't know. She basically is one of the biggest YouTubers out there right now, and really doesn't do much of anything. It's like a vlog, sort of Casey Neistat vlog style. And I was just sitting there thinking, man, for the next generation, if they're able to create content, or if they're able to be an expert in a subject, the distribution machine is so good. We're gonna, at some point, I'm not really that good at TikTok. I'm certainly not the smartest YouTuber. I'm just slightly too old.
Yeah.
The next gen, I think, is gonna really take it sort of by storm.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, I took a lot of your time.
Wow, this is great, man.
I appreciate you.
Yeah,
it's
right
nice
back
to
at
finally
you.
sit and get to know you a little bit more.
Same.
And I'll see you out there crushing it.
Yeah.
And let me know if you need help with that extra 20%.
Oh, I'm totally going to harass you on all of that.
All right. I appreciate you.
Thanks, man.